this period here looks a lot like what you'd think of as a housing boom or any kind of construction boom or durable asset boom, right? Because what's interesting about this period is we have an equilibrium in which the users of the assets think the assets are cheap, right? That is, from a use standpoint, assets are cheap. From a production side, people think the assets are expensive, right? And rationally so in this world. That is, from a use point of view, because the rental rate is low. And why is the rental rate low, even though the house costs a lot? Why is the rental rate low? Yeah. No, but what makes people think the rental rate is low? Think about the guy who's living in this period, right? He's living in this period here. The house is more expensive than it used to be, but he's running out to buy a house, right? This is 2003, right? He's out buying a house, even though the house costs 20% more than it did a few years earlier. Well, he thinks it's going to appreciate, which in this model corresponds to the rental cost is actually pretty low, right? Housing prices are high, but they're rising. And because they're rising, the rental cost is actually low. If you think back to the housing boom, that was a huge part of the logic, right? Back to your question from before. That was a huge part of the logic. People were buying houses and using houses because housing, in a sense, was cheap, right? While you had to take out a big mortgage, well, it's going to go up in value, and if it goes up in value, I can repay my house at relatively low, I can make money in the limit, but at least offset a lot of that cost. Now, in this model, this is a fully rational model, right? This is a fully rational housing boom, right? And it has something that looks like the housing boom, right? Prices are high and they're rising. Construction is high and rising, right? Rents are low. People think, wow, a house is a great deal. I want to live in housing, right? People consuming lots of housing even though prices are high. And that period is fully consistent. And so you could say, well, geez, that's a housing boom, okay? And I think that is a key feature of a housing boom. Yeah. No, because think again, it's the same logic I had before. Let's assume I picked too high of a PT, right? Well, then too high of a PT is going to make P's higher going forward and going backwards from there, which is going to make I higher, which is going to make R's lower, which won't justify that high PT. So there's still the same argument I made before, that there's still, like, you got to choose the right level of P to make all this internally consistent. There's not two levels of P in this model that will both satisfy supply equals demand at every point in time. Yes? Well, no, we're only halfway there now. We haven't finished this, okay? All right. But you agree we can have something that looks like the housing boom. But the logic, point is, you'll see it a bit. Even if we come back and make like this irrational exuberance kind of view of the world, the logic that makes this model tick is still going to carry over. Because you have to, look, forget the future. At the point in time, you need to do two things to explain the housing boom. You have to get the builders to build a lot, which basically means prices got to be high. But it's simultaneously, you got to get people to live in those places, which means you got to get R to be effectively low, right? Because you can't get both sides of the market to be happy with more supply without some change in the fundamentals without doing that, right? Because remember, I haven't shifted the demand curve or the supply curve during this period of time, right? But if I want to generate this equilibrium without shifting current supply and demand, really it's got to look like this. I got to be in this world where prices are high to get more building, but rents are low to get people to use the houses that are being built, right? That's a necessary part of the equilibrium without even bringing in this forward-looking equation. Everybody understand? I just need that. I need R's low and P's high. And that's what this model generates, okay? All right, that's an essential part of what the equilibrium